There's been plenty of instances of not fully evolved Pokemon becoming viable or even thriving competitively. Some can even surpass their final evolutions thanks to having unique traits they lose when evolving, or just from the extra bulk being able to run Eviolite affords them. But what are the best not fully evolved Pokemon competitively of each typing? For this, we will look at first and second stage Pokemon who can still evolve and their competitive viability in singles and doubles formats. For Mons who were once fully evolved, their competitive showings will not be considered until their evolution was released. Spoiler, lots of Mons with Gen 4 Evos make up this list. Each type will get one choice with an honorable mention, and for diversity, I will not mention the same Pokemon for more than one type. So if say Kakuna was picked for poison, I wouldn't also choose it for bug. Speaking of bugs, let's start off with the bug type. Shout out Metapod first and foremost, as it doesn't get much harder than this guy. I had a hard time picking the top bug, but in the end, Cypher takes the crown. Cypher is a very menacing Mon that has received great buffs over the generations. These include the introduction of heavy duty boots that allows it to not take 50% just for existing against Stealth Rocks. It has gained really valuable moveset additions like Dual Wing Beat and Trailblaze that are buffed by its great technician ability. These help Cypher stay relevant as power creep caught up to it. Many UU showings eventually turned into PU before being brought back up to NU this gen with all the new tools. Its great speed and attack make it a super solid lower tier pivot who can set up, being able to threaten sweeps or gain switch initiative with stab U-turn to get out of bad matchups while racking up great chip damage. The honorable mention Charjabug shines in doubles though. Its Eviolite bulk combines well with awesome support Sprite attacks that lower the opponent's stats. Its niche being able to set up webs, pivot with Volt Switch, and use the great signature ability Battery to power up ally special attacks, making it beneficial just to stick around. Moving to the Dark type, we see the top candidate in Murkrow. Murkrow received an evolution to Honchkrow in Gen 4, granting it eligibility for this ranking. Unlike Cypher, Murkrow is an example of a Mon that outshines its evolution competitively. This is due to a few differences between it and Honchkrow. Honchkrow gains immense stat bust when evolving, but it comes at the cost of 20 speed points, which drops it to a pretty mild 71 base speed. More importantly though, when evolving, Honchkrow gains the hidden ability Moxie over Murkrow's amazing Prankster ability. Honchkrow is still almost always the better option in singles tiers as a choice Moxie sweeper, but in VGC, Murkrow actually has a competitive presence providing Prankster support. With unique priority options like Haze and Quash, combined with other great choices like Tailwind, Weather Support, and Taunt, Murkrow can fit on a wide array of teams. It isn't too bad defensively, and considering Prankster gives you priority on support moves, you can invest EVs in bulk, making it pretty tanky when considering you will be holding Eviolite. The base 91 speed means without any investment, you'll still be faster than a lot of Mons and can fire off Foul Play or a still pretty strong Brave Bird to provide damage. These traits help to make it my pick of best unevolved Dark type. Honorable mention here goes to Bisharp, which feels crazy for me to say, but Generation 9 is all I can consider for Bisharp, and this former powerful OU threat lost knockoff and had its role taken over by its overbearingly powerful evolution. It's still a good Mon capable of putting in work in lower tiers, still boasting a solid typing, monstrous attack, and can at least take advantage of Eviolite now to make Swords Dance Sucker Punch sets more effective. Gonna blast over to the fire typing next, which thankfully gave me a good choice this generation. You may have noticed the rise of Magmar in doubles lately, and that is our choice. Magmar has a nice set of tools to play a support role in doubles. Access to the rare redirection move Follow Me is a big one to protect allies by diverting attacks into its slot. The ability Vital Spirit prevents sleep, so it can stump Spore or Sleep Powder users while also threatening them with Fire Stab. You have other great tools like Will-O-Wisp and Clear Smog to round out your set. Magmar also sports a lot better bulk with Eviolite than its evolution Magmortar, who only gains a BST jump of 45 when evolved. This includes losing 10 points of speed, which is crucial as Magmar is able to outspeed a lot more Pokemon naturally. This is an instance where the evolved form is actually worse. There wasn't many other great fire types I could think of. My honorable mention is going to Combusken. It has an amazing ability in speed boost, which helps it a lot, and a great offensive typing with access to setup and sword stance. It could hang in lower tiers like NU for a bit, but unfortunately lacked a really strong fighting stab, as it didn't even have access to high jump kick and only received close combat in Generation 9. It may have pushed for a higher tier with a combo of one of those alongside Flare Blitz, but I guess we'll never know now. The electric type is next, and I don't think I'll be shocking anyone here when I give the honor to Magneton. Magneton served a solid role in Gen 3 OU as a steel type trapper with Magnet Pull, but I have to consider Gen 4 on, as that's when it officially became a not fully evolved mon. Like a lot of the Gen 4 cross-generation evolutions, the evolution gained more power and bulk, but lost a bit of speed. This is the case with Magneton and Magnezone, which gave Magneton reason to sometimes be used over the otherwise overall better Magnezone. At 70 base speed instead of 60, Magneton with a Choice Scarf gained out speeds that an evolution just couldn't achieve. And with a still pretty powerful 120 special attack, it could outrun mons like Darkrai and Shaman Sky, along with mons like Scarf Tyranitar. You could still just as easily trap and remove Pokemon like Skarmory, and beat Pokemon like Excadrill and Ferrothorn with Hidden Power Fire. You were just able to potentially do more with the added speed. Magneton never really outclassed Magnezone, as it was an OU staple for a long time, but having a niche in higher tiers, sometimes even including Ubers, for many generations, grants it a cozy spot on this list. My honorable mention has to go to Electabuzz. It has been solid in a couple lower singles tiers since its evolution Electivire was released in Generation 4, but being able to pull off a similar support role as Magmar, who we just talked about, is the real reason it gets a mention. Also, having access to the combo of Follow Me and Vital Spirit allow it to redirect the same moves, and you have other good support tools like Taunt, Feint, Electroweb, and Volt Switch you can round your set out with. 105 speed compared to its evolution's 95, and a lot better bulk with Eviolite makes it a preferred option to run over Electivire. In this case, they have the same special attack stat too, so Electabuzz kind of outclasses it everywhere. The rock type finds itself with a solid candidate with Rhydon. Rhydon what? This OG Pokemon was definitely built to be the final stage, but it is another mon who was given an evolution in Gen 4. Stick with me, these aren't all going to be Gen 4 evolved mons. While it doesn't have any statistical or ability advantages over its evolution, it remains a lower tier presence who has seen use in RU and NU for the most part, but as power creep continues to climb, Rhydon sees its usefulness fall as it isn't even good enough for NU in Gen 9. Historically though, it has been a great stealth rock setter who can threaten amazing damage with its 130 base attack set. Eviolite allows it to become incredibly tanky on the physical side, so while it misses out on having Rhyperior's solid rock ability, it has overall better bulk at the cost of its item slot. Honorable mention for rock is tough. Not too much impressive NFE mons, so I'm gonna shout out Fear Aaron. Pretty much a noob trap gimmick where you use a level 1 Pokemon with the sturdy ability and use a combination of Endeavor and Shell Bell to take the Pokemon down to very low HP and recover to full, restoring your sturdy. In combination with Sandstorm, the chip damage would deal the finishing blow. Next we'll shift over to the typing most associated with rock, that being ground. Ground typing has some solid choices, but the obvious one has to be Gligar. Gligar on its own was pretty solid, and was able to be a solid lower tier Pokemon in Generation 4 when it received an evolution in Gliscor. A great typing, reliable recovery and roost, and access to great support options, including setting up rocks, made it a good utility Pokemon. But come Gen 5 and onwards, it would build upon those traits with significant buffs. For one, it gained the immunity ability, which was a much more useful tool than the situational Hypercutter. But the biggest one was the introduction of Eviolite, which turned this already physically bulky mon into one that was able to crack the UU tier for the next 3 generations. It was great roll compression, being able to tank hits while setting and removing hazards, with Defog becoming a part of its arsenal. This line unfortunately lost access to Roost in Generation 9, which definitely hurts Gligar more, since Gliscor can at least still recover through its Poison Heal ability. But it is still a solid lower tier option despite this, and at least can fill that moveset hole with coverage or its new access to spikes. Honorable mention for ground will go to Dougie Jr. Diglett is here solely for its role in cementing Arena Trap as a bannable ability. When Dugtrio was trolling and trapping too many threats in OU, people wanted to see if the Mon was really the issue or the ability. So they started using Diglett in OU to clear a lot of the same threats Dugtrio would. This choice was mostly because I found it funny that this little guy, with only one solid stat and 10 base HP, could fill a trapping role. Plus there weren't really any other obvious choices for honorable mention. Fairy typing sees one of the more impactful doubles mons in this list. This goes to Clefairy. Clefairy shares one big advantage over its evolution Clefable. This is access to the rare Friend Guard ability. This doubles exclusive ability lessens the amount of damage done to allies. This paired with redirection and helping hand support makes Clefairy a fairly common mon to see in doubles. And not even just a niche pick for a certain gen, but consistently solid for multiple generations. Besides this, Clefairy could also hang in lower tiers, providing support with a combination of Eviolite, reliable recovery, and Magic Guard, making its bulk actually pretty decent. There it can spread paralysis, set rocks, get rid of items with knockoff, and healing wish its sweepers back up when needed. My honorable mention for Fairy will go to Togetic. This formerly fully evolved mon benefited from a Gen 4 evolution. This allowed it to start holding Eviolite from Gen 5 on and become real bulky with Roost and its already solid defenses. With a solid support pool including Defog, Heal Bell, and Thunder Wave, Togetic saw some lower tier support play in singles, and with its typing swap in Generation 6, it checks certain mons a lot better, most notably Dragon and Fighting types. Togetic was in the running for the Flying type, which we will cover next. Instead, I'm actually going to go with a classic in Golbat. While the Poison type wasn't initially very good competitively, it got better over time and synergizes pretty well with the Flying type. Golbat received an evolution to Crobat in Generation 2, but it's better if we don't count its Gen 1 appearance anyways. Golbat actually has a great 90 base speed for a support mon and really solid all-around bulk that is really impressive even before Eviolite dropped. With a fast Roost, U-turn, taunt, and the ability to always hit Toxic, Golbat has seen itself as a reliable lower tier mon in multiple generations. It's not entirely passive either, as Stab Brave Bird, coming off a serviceable base 80 attack, can still do a decent chunk. As an honorable mention from the choices we have left, not repeating any, I'm gonna rock with Fletchinder. This Talonflame pre-evolution had similar success with its Gale Wings ability in Generation 6. It could terrorize middle tiers with priority flying attacks like Acrobatics, while even living hits with priority Roost. Access to good setup and Sword Stance could give it late game cleaning potential, while Will-O-Wisp could cripple physical attackers. It was a pretty run and gun mon you could pivot with, as 84 base speed is still pretty decent to get a U-turn off to safety. Its 73 base attack isn't even that much worse than Talonflame's 81. Having the strongest priority moves in the game just happens to be really useful. Who would have thought? The Fighting type sees one of the few rare instances where the best not fully evolved mon wasn't previously fully evolved. It goes to Clown-Nose Jr. Girder. Girder has been a solid low tier choice in singles since its release. It may just look like Conk Jr., but with Eviolite, it actually utilizes bulky setup sets that Conk just can't run in higher tiers with its low speed and the higher power level. Girder outclasses similar mons like Machoke and Scraggy, who can run similar sets. It has a better overall stat distribution for the role, and Priority Mach Punch can do wonders for that low speed stat. Drain Punch recovery after a bulk up or two makes Girder extremely hard to beat down, while Knockoff really deters Ghosts and Psychic type resist from swapping in to block it. Honorable mention for fighting will have to go to Machoke. This was a close one with Scraggy and Gen 9 Primate being considered. Overall, I think Machoke had the biggest impact competitively. Bringing essentially the same tools as Machamp, but with worse stats, allowed Machoke to thrive in some lower singles tiers like Girder. It is able to run no guard sets though, which means you are sending dynamic punches your opponent's way and they will be hitting themselves in confusion. These traits, combined with 100 base attack and decent bulk, especially with Eviolite come Gen 5, let Machoke compete with fully evolved fighting types for lower tier rules. Dragon types are often seen as a super strong type, having tons of legendary and pseudo-legendary mons, so you think there would be some great not fully evolved candidates over the years. But it's a type that has been lacking a standout candidate, but my pick is going to go to Duraludon. Duraludon as a standalone Pokemon was quite solid, and in Generation 9 it received an evolution that was sent to the Ubers tier. With a 535 BST, Duraludon sports an amazing defensive typing, resisting 9 types, having a poison immunity, and only having 2 weaknesses. It was already pretty bulky on the physical side, but now with Eviolite, it can take plenty of hits and fire back off its 120 base special attack. This got it banned from PU, which I think is pretty solid in Generation 9, considering the power levels that are in current lower tiers. So Duraludon is solid enough to be above a lot of stupidly powerful mons. Stalwart is a solid ability in doubles to avoid redirection, but if it had a useful ability in singles, I think it could push even higher as we see big upgrades in our Chaladon getting stamina and sturdy. You can throw any of those middle stage pseudos as an honorable mention, as they all had some time to be decent in lower tiers, but I would like to mention my boy Dipplin. He is rocking strong in ZU and is a super bulky Eviolite user that has a lot of tools to cause passive damage, has reliable recovery, and is probably the best mon at using Sticky Hold since it gets to keep its Eviolite if you try to knock it off. You a real one, Dipsky. You would think with a typing as good as Water, there would be at least one not fully evolved Pokemon with a decent competitive impact. But I looked around and couldn't really find anything that stood out. I came to a few candidates and put them in a poll for you guys to vote on. The relatively split consensus was for Slowpoke, which I'm not sure if people actually voted for it knowing what it's done competitively, or just like this derpy little guy. But sure, why not? Let's put Slowpoke in this spot. There wasn't really a clear-cut answer. Slowpoke at least recently had a small niche as a very, very slow Trick Room setter in doubles. It can't be taunted thanks to its Oblivious ability, and its Eviolite bulk lets it take a decent amount of hits. With Heal Pulse, Slowpoke can support its slow Trick Room attacking allies by keeping them healthy while they deal the big damage. There are plenty of solid honorable mentions, Basculin with the white stripe being a good one, since it's pretty powerful for a mon that can now evolve. It just unfortunately can't use its evolution line's banned signature move Last Respects. And shout out to this guy in the comments of that poll, who showed the highest water type Pokemon in each gen tier wise. I considered most of these, mainly Prinplup and Clamperl, but none really jumped out as having a real good place competitively, except maybe a surprise Clamperl with its signature item making it really strong. Another kind of tricky one was the neighboring Grass type, although I think the candidates I have are a little bit better here. My choice for Grass has to go to Tangela. This mysterious noodlehead has tons of tools that give it reason to be used in lower tiers. Of course, we were only considering Gen 4 and on, since that's when Tangrowth appeared, but that's more than enough reason to grant Tangela this spot. It only has 2 good stats, but come Gen 5, this mon got a whole lot better. Eviolite combined with the new hidden ability Regenerator made Tangela a great physically defensive wall, and it has a really wide move pool to do whatever you want it to do. Spreading status and placing Leech Seed was its bread and butter usually, but with its really solid 100 base special attack, it could deal solid damage even without investment. Fire off a Leaf Storm and take a hit, then heal with regen, Giga Drain for longevity, hidden power to cover your weaknesses in the tier. Knockoff was even used to just get rid of annoying items and could do alright damage after its buff in Gen 6. Tangela wasn't always tiered very high, but you could definitely stick it on teams in higher tiers and it would be very serviceable. Grass ain't the greatest defensive typing, but it definitely has some useful resists and unique traits. My honorable mention for Grass goes to Thwackey. This pre-Rilla didn't bring the boom like its evolution, but is essentially a light version of Rillaboom. It loses a lot of attack, but can supplement the bulk with Eviolite if it wishes. Its 80 base speed does make it threatening, and you might just want to run Choice Band as you keep the Grassy Surge ability. This in itself provides good team support with the chip recovery, but it also turns that 85 attack stat into a quite serviceable number considering your Grass Stab gets boosted 30%. Woodhammers still hurt a lot from Thwackey, and for weakened mons, you can snipe them with a very strong priority Grassy Glide while terrain is active. This can definitely do some damage in the lower tiers, and I think in previous generations when the power levels were lower, a mon like Thwackey could have definitely cracked a roster spot in NU or even RU. The Steel type has the trait of having the most resistances out of any typing. This makes for some interesting Eviolite users that qualify for this list, but none have had a better showing in my opinion than Doublade. As Aegislash was banned to Ubers in Gen 6 and 7 for being busted, Doublade was actually able to sneak in and sort of fill the void it left. It could take advantage of unwitting teams that stopped prepping to take on a strong Steel Ghost. It saw an impressive UU showing in both of those generations and definitely could be used in OU. Doublade's typing and stats make it incredibly tanky on the physical side, but it isn't just here for taking hits. Its 110 base attack is better than most fully evolved Pokemon's attack, showing that it can dish out damage as well. The other stats are nothing to write home about, but with Eviolite, you can at least take a few special hits with your many resists. Oh yeah, and free immunities. The 35 base speed isn't even terrible when you consider Shadow Sneak will be your primary attack, and you actually benefit from being slower if running Gyro Ball as your steal coverage. With Swords Dance, Doublade can late game clean while being hard to revenge kill. Now imagine if it had an actual ability it could take advantage of. Honorable mention for Steel is going to go to Ferroseed. It is pretty much just Ferrothorn at home. Mini-Me version that is stupidly tanky with Eviolite for what it is. Steel and Grass is a cracked defensive typing that lets this mon set up hazards, leech seed all over the place, rack up some Iron Barbs chip, and pretty much always have a full powered Gyro Ball thanks to its 10 base speed. It has seen use in UU, RU, NU, and PU, dropping a bit each generation as its traits become less impressive, but historically it has proven to be a very serviceable lower tier equivalent to Ferrothorn. We swapped from the best defensive typing to the worst in the ice type, but there are a couple pretty sweet not fully evolved options to choose. For this we are going to go with Sneasel, with Weavile giving more speed and attack to this glass cannon build. This is another mon that is sort of a light version of its evolution, and a mon that doesn't have the bulk to run an Eviolite set. It instead will opt for damage boosting items like Choice Band and Life Orb, and attempt to secure KOs and avoid getting hit altogether. An advantage it does have over Weavile is an actual useful ability in Inner Focus. This gives it a small niche in doubles since it now avoids a combination of Intimidate and Fake Out flinching. It is still a relatively strong and fast mon who stayed relevant through generations of power creep by virtue of moveset buffs like Knockoff and Triple Axle. Sneasel is a solid lower tier and even middle tier choice and a good rep for the ice type. This was actually a close one as the honorable mention Piloswine almost beat Sneasel out of the spot. Piloswine or Piloswine, however you want to say it, received an evolution into one of my favorite Pokemon, Mamoswine. Piloswine fills a very different role than Sneasel, acting more like a bulky attacker, which is harder to be successful when you're sporting the ice typing. Despite this, it was able to find lower tier success for many consecutive generations. Its offensive typing is amazing, with great stab attacks coming off its real solid 100 attack. It at least reduces its weakness laden typing a bit by having access to the Thick Fat ability, essentially neutralizing its fire weakness while giving it an ice resistance. But in the end, I feel Sneasel had more overall success competitively. The Ghost type haunts this ranking with some excellent choices. My top one definitely has to go to Dusclops though. Dusclops is one of those mons who got buffed due to getting an evolution and then proceeded to outshine it. Sure, in Gen 4 when Dusknoir was released, it just outclassed Dusclops with its superior stats, but come Generation 5, Eviolite just works so well on Dusclops, allowing it to fill its role as an all-around supportive wall. It was actually in a higher tier than Dusknoir in Gen 5, and generally just a better option in singles. But what really made this mon shine was its ability to thrive in doubles formats. With a great support move pool, including access to Trick Room, Dusclops provides incredible support and is hard to take out with those sky-high defenses. Will-O-Wisp, Helping Hand, Ally Switch, and consistent damage in Nightshade were options for rounding out Dusclops' set. It could also leverage its low HP stat to its advantage by using Pain Split to recover tons of health while doing good damage. Having a much larger impact than your evolution really says something and earns Dusclops its spot as a Ghost type pick. The honorable mention for Ghost will go to Galarian Corsola. This sad looking boy was probably munched on by a Toxapex, but gained the ability to evolve. This change was actually amazing for it though, as it received a much better typing, better stat spread, and great support move pool. It has comparable bulk to Dusclops, with lower defenses but better HP. It fills a bit of a different role, being more of an annoyance in singles than a double supporter, but access to Stealth Rock and Strength Sap is what made Corsola a niche pick in higher tiers in its debut gen. It loses the great regenerator ability that OG Corsola has, but Cursed Body is still a useful ability that can come in clutch to disable your opponent's strongest attack to hit you. Will-O-Wisp and Nightshade make an appearance here too, as just great options. An unprepared team can really struggle to break this mod, as it has few weaknesses and can shut down physically leaning teams without a taunt user. The Psychic type was another tough choice, and I'm sure I will have split reaction from the community on this one. I ended up choosing Kadabra for this spot. Reason being, it has had consistent mid to lower tier showing since Gen 1. The physical special split definitely hurt its coverage a bit, but the combination of 105 speed, 120 special attack, and the amazing Magic Guard ability kept Kadabra as a viable option for so long. Power creep finally caught up to it in the most recent gens, as it has a harder time finding use in the lower tiers, but out of all the not fully evolved psychics, I feel Kadabra has had the most impact, being a glass cannon wall breaker that can always take one hit with a focus sash that can't be broken by hazards, weather, or any other residual damage. Honorable mention here goes to Gothorita, as it has had a small niche in an Uber's tier or two with Shadow Tag. It filled essentially the same role as Gothitelle, but trapped different mons more effectively with its superior bulk while holding Eviolite. It would trap and lower the opposing mon's attacking stats, essentially PP stalling their attacks with taunt and resting off damage. Truly top tier furling gameplay. It never had a lasting impact or was a defining part of a tier like Kadabra has been, but a small niche in Ubers definitely deserves an honorable mention. Taking the spot for the poison type is another OG in Haunter. Haunter's lower tier impact extends to Generation 8, being banned from the ZU tier. That's something, right? But from Generations 1 to 6, Haunter has been a threat in tiers as high as UU to still being a great pick in NU, which is pretty powerful come those later generations. A real solid 95 speed stat coupled with 115 special attack allows Haunter to wall break and uses great support move pool to annoy its checks. Sludge Bomb and Shadow Ball is a good enough dual stab that come with good secondary effects. Free immunities and a couple quad resists give some swapping opportunities for this otherwise frail mon, and it could always get a cheeky Destiny Bond off on a thick mon it couldn't break. It even has a small advantage over Gengar, as it kept its amazing levitate ability even after Gengar was stripped of it. Overall, Haunter's status as a powerful lower tier offensive dynamo earns it the top spot for poison. Not too many great poison types to choose as an honorable mention, but we do have a solid newer option in Hisui and Quillfish. This Legends Arceus introduced regional variant can evolve into Overquill, and it's pretty serviceable in lower tiers thanks to a few great traits. First off is the amazing dark poison typing that gives it only one weakness while maintaining 4 resist and an immunity. It has the same stats as OG Quillfish that already acted as a somewhat bulky support with Intimidate and a decent defense stat. But Quillfish mostly just wants to spread some status with the amazing Bar Barrage, which becomes super strong against poison foes. Other than this, you're pretty much guaranteed value from this mon through Intimidate supports, spikes, or status. And on to our last typing, and definitely the most competitive, the normal typing. You know it's a good typing when I'm not even considering mons like Ursaring, Dunsparce, Vigoroth, and Type Null for this spot. We're actually going to start with the honorable mention. This goes to Gen 2 introduced Porygon 2. Porygon 2 had some good success competitively before receiving its tweaked out final evolution, Porygon Z, in Gen 4. These two mons are very functionally different though, giving them different competitive strengths. While Porygon Z gains a lot of speed and special attack, it loses considerable bulk. This makes it more suited for offensive teams, while Porygon 2 becomes incredibly bulky with Eviolite and leverages its great move pool to become an amazing bulky attacker. Porygon has seen incredible success in singles and doubles, being hard to beat down with its reliable recovery and only one weakness. It has 3 amazing abilities to choose from as well. Trace being most common in singles to copy other great abilities, while you may see more of download in doubles for immediate power. Porygon 2 is a great Trick Room setter who can often get up multiple Trick Rooms in a match. Access to Bolt Beam gives it near perfect coverage, and in doubles, this is essentially what Porygon has ran for its entire tenure. Mix in a move or two depending on the meta. You may run a status spreading move like T-Wave or Toxic in singles to stall out the opponent, and you have reliable stab and tri-attack too, which itself carries status potential. This mon would pretty much be the clear choice for every other typing, but unfortunately for Porygon 2, there's one mon that stands even above it for the normal typing. This is definitely the most obvious one on the list. The top normal spot goes to Chansey. Chansey received an evolution into Blissey come Generation 2. Blissey immediately assumed Chansey's position as the special wall in OU and Ubers by virtue of just having better stats. This left Chansey to be the UU special wall, just being a slightly less bulky, but still incredibly specially bulky mod. But things changed in Generation 5 with Eviolite. Now we have a reason to use Chansey over Blissey. Normally both would die or take a huge amount of damage from any decently strong physical hit. But with Eviolite boosting both defenses by 50%, Chansey could invest in its defense stat, be able to actually take non-fighting type physical hits pretty well, and still take the special hits like they're nothing due to its natural bulk and the 50% Eviolite boost. The only real cost here is you don't get the passive leftovers recovery that Blissey has, and will opt for Seismic Toss as your attack since Chansey has terrible attacking stats. But it is definitely worth it considering you're saving a lot of damage with the buff defenses, plus you have the reliable recovery and soft boiled, while not being able to succumb to status by virtue of your natural cure ability. Chansey would surpass Blissey in singles tiering in Gen 6 and 7, being OU, while Blissey dropped to UU in a crazy role reversal. Chansey is also usable, although not top tier as support in doubles, as it still shuts down special attackers and can take some physical hits while healing allies. So those are the top unevolved Pokemon of each type. Do you think any other Pokemon deserve a mention or the spot for best unevolved Pokemon of their typing? Let me know in the comments. If you liked the video, then consider subscribing for more competitive content coming weekly. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters, including Goldbud, Mr. Frank Beans. And thanks to my YouTube members for supporting the channel. All of you guys rock. And lastly, make sure to check this video out next, buds. I'll see you there.